He was already gone by the time the dog made his choice. Not dead, just slipping somewhere quiet, somewhere cold, where breath forgets its way back. And still, the German shepherd ran. His paws struck the asphalt hard enough to echo in the empty stretch of highway, a blur of sable and shadow under flickering headlights, eyes burning with something too urgent to ignore. It was just past midnight on Route 26, the kind of road that doesn't forgive mistakes. 2 lanes, no shoulder, pine trees pressing in like silent witnesses. The air smelled of wet earth and distant rain, the kind that hangs heavy before it falls. A pickup truck cut through the darkness, its beams slicing across the road just as the dog lunged forward. No hesitation, no fear, straight into its path. Tires screamed. The truck swerved, gravel spitting, engine growling in protest before it skidded to a halt inches from him. For a second, everything held its breath. The driver, Claire Hudson, gripped the wheel, heart pounding loud enough to drown out the radio. "What the?" she whispered, but the words died in her throat. Because the dog didn't run. He didn't bark wildly or retreat into the trees. He stood there, still, watching her. His chest heaved, sides rising and falling too fast, too sharp. His coat was soaked, not from rain, but from something darker clinging to the fur along his shoulder and muzzle. Not his. Claire knew that without knowing how. The dog took a step forward. Slow, deliberate, then another. He lowered his head, not in fear, but in something that felt dangerously close to pleading. Hey, easy, Claire said, pushing the door open, boots crunching against the gravel as she stepped out into the cold night air. The wind shifted, carrying with it the faint scent of pine and something metallic she couldn't place. The dog didn't approach her. Instead, he turned, looked back down the road behind him, then glanced at her again. Once, twice, as if checking she understood. "You want me to follow you?" she murmured, half to herself. The shepherd's ears twitched. His tail didn't wag. No friendly signal. Just tension. Purpose. He moved a few steps toward the tree line, then stopped. Looked. Back again. Waiting. Claire hesitated. Every instinct told her this was wrong. Dangerous. People didn't follow strange dogs into the woods in the middle of the night. Not on roads like this. Not where self-service vanished 10 miles back. But there was something in the way he held himself, like a soldier refusing to abandon his post. Like whatever waited out, there mattered more than fear. "Okay," she said softly, reaching back in her truck for a flashlight. "Okay, I'm coming." The beam cut through the darkness as she stepped off the road, boots sinking slightly into damp soil. The forest swallowed the sound of the highway almost immediately, leaving only the hush of wind through needles and the faint rhythm of her own breath. The dog moved ahead of her, not too fast, not too slow, just enough to keep her following. Every few seconds, he looked back, always checking, always waiting. The deeper they went, the colder it felt. The air thickened, heavy with the scent of wet wood and something else now, faint but growing stronger. Claire's grip tightened on the flashlight. "What happened out here?" she whispered. The shepherd stopped abruptly. His body stiffened, ears snapping forward. For a moment, he didn't move at all. Then he let out a low sound, not a bark, not a growl. Something softer, broken at the edges. He stepped aside, and that's when Claire saw it. A cabin, if it could still be called that, half hidden between the trees, its structure leaning, one side sagging under the weight of time and neglect. The door hung open, creaking faintly in the wind. No lights, no movement, just silence, the kind that presses in on your chest. The dog moved toward it, faster now, urgency spilling through every step. He disappeared inside. Claire's heart kicked hard against her ribs. "Hello," she called out, voice thin against the stillness. No answer, just the wind, and something else, something she hadn't noticed before. A sound so faint it almost didn't exist. She stepped closer, boots brushing over old leaves, flashlight trembling slightly in her hand as she reached the threshold. "Hello," she tried again. Inside, the darkness shifted, and then she saw him. "Before we begin, tell me where are witching from. Drop your country in the comments. I'd love to see how far this story travels." Claire did not breathe at first. The beam of her flashlight landed on a pair of boots stretched out across the warped wooden floor, scuffed leather, laces half undone, the kind worn by someone who had walked too many miles and never complained about it. Her eyes followed the line of those boots upward, past mud-stained jeans, past a jacket torn at the shoulder, until the light reached his face. Ethan Cole. She did not know his name yet, but she knew the look, the kind of stillness that does not belong to sleep. His head was turned slightly to the side, one arm resting awkwardly against his chest as if it had fallen there and stayed. His breathing was shallow, barely there, each inhale delayed like the air itself had to be convinced to return. "Oh my God," Claire whispered, the words slipping out before she could stop them. The dog was already beside him. Rex moved with a quiet urgency, circling once, then lowering himself near Ethan's shoulder, pressing close but careful, as if he understood exactly where not to touch. His eyes flicked to Claire, sharp and searching. Not panicked, not wild, just waiting. Hey, can you hear me?" Claire dropped to her knees beside the man, setting the flashlight down so the beam angled across the room, catching dust in the air, old wood, the broken edge of a table. Her hands hovered for a second before settling gently against his jacket. "Warm, still warm. Stay with me, okay? You are not alone." The words felt small in the silence, but she said them anyway. She checked his pulse the way she remembered from a first aid class years ago, fingers pressing lightly against his wrist. For a second, nothing. Then there, faint, uneven, but there. Okay, you are still here," she exhaled, relief threading through her voice, though it did not reach her eyes yet. The cabin creaked softly around them, wind slipping through gaps in the walls, carrying the scent of damp pine and something metallic that lingered in the air. Claire glanced toward the doorway, then back to Ethan. "We need help. Fast." She reached into her pocket, pulling out her phone, thumb already moving to dial. No bars, not even a flicker. She turned, lifting it higher, stepping toward the doorway, holding it up as if the sky might change its mind. Nothing. The silence of no signal felt louder than any siren. Come on," she muttered, walking a few steps outside, then back in, trying again, but the screen stayed blank. Behind her, Rex let out a low sound. Not loud, not demanding, just enough to pull her attention back. He had not moved far, but his posture had changed. He was closer now, his head resting lightly against Ethan's side, eyes fixed on Claire with an intensity that made her chest tighten. "I know," she said softly, kneeling again. "I know. I'm trying." She shrugged off her jacket and folded it quickly, sliding it under Ethan's head to lift him slightly, careful, steady, her hands trembling just enough to remind her how real this was. "Stay with me," she repeated, more firmly now. Rex shifted closer, his body pressing along Ethan's side, sharing warmth without being asked. Claire noticed then how still the forest had become. No insects, no distant cars, just the faint rhythm of Ethan's breathing and the soft scrape of Rex's paws as he adjusted himself. "What happened to you out here?" she murmured, more to the silence than to him. Her eyes caught something near his chest, a set of dog tags, half hidden beneath his shirt, the chain dulled by dirt but unmistakable. Military. That explained the way he carried himself even now, even like this. That explained the dog. She swallowed hard. "All right, soldier," she said under her breath, a quiet resolve settling in. "We are not losing you tonight." She looked at Rex. "We need to move him. Somewhere higher. Somewhere I can get a signal." The dog did not react right away. He watched her, still, as if weighing her words in a way no animal should understand. Then, slowly he stood. He stepped back just enough to give her space. It was not obedience. It was permission. Claire took a breath, bracing herself as she slid one arm carefully under Ethan's shoulders. "Easy, she whispered, more to herself than to him. His head shifted slightly against her. "Jacket," a faint exhale brushing against her wrist. For a split second, she thought he might wake. But the moment passed. His body remained heavy, unresponsive. She adjusted her grip, trying to lift him enough to move, but the effort stalled halfway. He was too heavy, too still. Her arms shook. "I cannot do this alone," she said, breath catching. Rex stepped forward again, not close enough to interfere, but close enough to be seen. His gaze moved from Claire to Ethan, then back again. There was no confusion there, no fear, only one clear, unwavering thing. "Do not stop." Claire swallowed, blinking hard against the pressure building behind her eyes. "I'm not going anywhere," she said quietly, as if answering something unspoken. "Neither are you." The wind shifted again, slipping through the open doorway, carrying a colder edge now, a warning of the night deepening around them. Claire looked toward the dark forest beyond the cabin, then back at the man in her arms, then at the dog who had brought her here against every instinct she had. Somewhere in that silence, a realization settled in. This was not random. This was not chance. This dog had chosen her, and whatever came next, she was already part of it. The weight of him settled into her arms like something the night itself was trying to keep. Claire adjusted her footing, boots scraping softly against the warped cabin floor, breath shallow and uneven as she tried again, pulling Ethan just an inch higher before the strain forced her to stop. "Come on, stay with me," she whispered, her voice steady only because it had to be. Rex circled once, tight and controlled, then moved toward the doorway, pausing there, looking back. Not frantic, not confused, intentional. He stepped outside, then returned, then stepped out again, repeating the motion with quiet urgency. Claire watched him, chest rising and falling faster now, mind catching up to what he was trying to say. "You want me to move him out there?" she asked, half expecting nothing in return. Rex held her gaze for a second, then turned again, disappearing into the darkness just beyond the threshold. Claire hesitated, eyes drifting toward the broken walls, the failing shelter that suddenly felt smaller, colder, more temporary than before. The air inside the cabin was not helping him. It was holding him still, trapping what little warmth remained. She looked back down at Ethan, at the faint rise of his chest, at the quiet fight happening somewhere beneath the surface. "All right," she said under her breath, resolve sharpening. "We are going." She shifted her grip, bracing her legs, using every ounce of leverage she could find as she pulled him inch by inch across the floor. The wood groaned softly beneath them, dust lifting into the beam of the flashlight as it swung slightly from where she had set it. It was not graceful. It was not fast, but it was movement, and that was enough. Rex reappeared at the doorway, watching closely, stepping back to make space as Claire reached the threshold, her arms trembling now, muscles burning with the effort. The cold hit them immediately, sharper than before, wrapping around them like a warning. Claire sucked in a breath, steadying herself as she dragged Ethan just outside the cabin, onto the patch of damp earth where the trees opened slightly above. The sky was barely visible through the branches, but it was more open than before. More chance. Okay, this is better," she murmured, though she did not know if that was true. Rex moved ahead, climbing a slight incline just beyond the clearing, then stopping again, looking back, ears forward, body aligned with a direction she had not yet considered. Claire followed his gaze. A rise. Not steep, but higher ground. If there was any chance of a signal, it would be there. "You are smarter than me. You know that," she breathed, a faint, tired smile flickering for half a second before fading. She reached for her phone again, glancing at the screen as if it might change out of respect for the effort alone. Still nothing. "All right," she said, more firmly now. "We go up." The next stretch felt longer than it should have. Every foot dragged forward was earned. Every breath carried the weight of what might happen if she stopped. Ethan's head shifted slightly against the makeshift support beneath him, a faint exhale brushing against her sleeve. Claire froze for a fraction of a second, hope flaring too quickly, too dangerously. "Ethan, can you hear me?" she asked, leaning closer, searching his face for any sign of response. Nothing, just that same fragile rhythm. But it was enough to keep her moving. Rex stayed just ahead, never too far, never out of sight, guiding without force, leading without hesitation. The incline leveled out into a small ridge where the trees thinned just enough for the sky to open above them, dark and endless. Claire lowered Ethan carefully, easing him down against the ground, adjusting his position so his breathing stayed clear. Her hands shook now, not from cold, but from everything pressing in at once. She pulled out her phone again, lifting it high, turning slowly, searching. One bar flickered, then vanished. She held her breath, turned again. There, just for a second, one bar returned, weak, uncertain. Come on, she whispered, thumb already dialing, every second stretching thin as the call tried to connect. Beside her, Rex lowered himself next to Ethan once more, pressing close, his head resting gently against the man's chest, as if listening for something deeper than sound. Claire glanced at them, something tightening in her chest at the sight. You did not leave him, she said softly. You went out into the dark, and you brought someone back. The line clicked. A faint tone, not clear, not stable, but there. Claire's breath caught. Hello, can you hear me? I need help. The signal crackled, breaking, bending under the weight of distance. She turned slightly, chasing that fragile connection, stepping just a few feet to the left, then back again, trying to find the exact place where the world would let her through. Behind her, Rex suddenly lifted his head. His ears snapped forward. His body went still. Not tense, not afraid, alert, listening. Claire did not hear it first. The wind moved softly through the trees. The night remained quiet. But Rex heard something else, something distant, something coming. And for the first time since she stepped off that road, Claire felt it too. Not in sound, not yet, but in the way the silence shifted, like the world was about to answer. The sound did not arrive all at once. It came in pieces, carried thin across the trees, almost mistaken for wind at first. Then something steadier, deeper, mechanical in a way the forest could not imitate. Claire froze mid-step, phone still pressed to her ear, the fragile signal hissing and breaking against her voice. Hello? Please, I need. The line cut. Silence rushed back in, heavy and immediate. She lowered the phone slowly, her breath catching somewhere between hope and fear. No, she whispered, turning in a small circle as if she could pull the signal back by will alone. Rex was already standing. His posture had changed again, not tense, not defensive, but sharpened, every line of his body pointing toward the sound only he seemed certain of. His ears tracked it precisely, head tilting just enough to measure distance, direction, intent. He stepped forward, then stopped, glancing back at Claire, waiting for her to follow the same invisible thread. You hear that too, do not you? She said, her voice barely more than breath. This time, she listened differently, not with panic, with patience. And there it was, faint but real, a low hum, rising and falling in the distance, like something moving across the edge of the world. An engine, far off, maybe a mile, maybe more, but moving. Claire's chest tightened. Okay, that is something, she said, forcing steadiness into her hands as she crouched beside Ethan again. His skin felt cooler now against her fingers, the night pressing harder around them. Stay with me, she murmured, adjusting his position slightly, making sure his airway stayed clear, remembering just enough from training to keep going without overthinking. Rex lowered himself beside Ethan once more, pressing close, but his attention did not settle. It stayed divided, one part anchored to the man beneath him, the other reaching outward into the dark, tracking that distant movement. Claire stood again, turning toward the ridge's edge where the trees thinned the most. If they are out there, they cannot see us, she said, more to herself than to anyone else. Her eyes scanned the ground, searching. No flares. No. Emergency kit. Nothing but earth, pine needles, and broken branches. Her gaze lifted toward her truck, barely visible through the trees below, its headlights still cutting a faint line across the road in the distance. Too far, too hidden. The sound grew slightly stronger, then dipped again, as if the vehicle had turned or slowed. Claire's pulse spiked. No, do not lose it, she whispered, stepping forward, waving one arm instinctively, though she knew it was useless from this distance. Rex stood abruptly, not frantic, decisive. He moved past her, trotting toward the slope that led back down toward the road, then stopped halfway, turning his head sharply toward her. One look, clear as any command. Cool me. Claire hesitated for half a second, glancing back at Ethan, then at the darkness beyond. I cannot leave him, she said, the words catching in her throat. Rex did not move. He held her gaze, steady, unblinking, as if refusing to accept that answer. Then he did something unexpected. He stepped back toward Ethan, lowered his head, and pressed it gently against the man's chest, just once, then lifted it again and looked at Claire. Not a demand, a reminder. Claire's breath hitched. You are saying you will stay. Rex blinked once. Slow, certain, the kind of stillness that carries more weight than sound. Claire swallowed hard, her mind racing through every possible risk, every instinct screaming not to split, not to trust, not to leave. But nothing about this night had followed instinct, and nothing about this dog had been wrong yet. The distant engine grew louder again, closer this time, then dipped as if passing behind her eyes. Time was thinning. Okay, she said finally, her voice trembling but resolute. Okay, you stay with him. I will bring them back. She stepped back, her eyes lingering on Ethan for one heartbeat longer, then on Rex, who had already settled beside him again, body aligned, guarding without movement. Claire turned and moved quickly down the slope, boots sliding slightly on loose soil, branches brushing against her jacket as she pushed through the trees, following the faint line of light that marked the road. The sound grew clearer with every step, the hum of an engine, the distant crunch of tires over asphalt. She broke through the tree line and stumbled onto the roadside, just as headlights appeared around a bend, cutting through the darkness like something sent an answer. Claire stepped forward, raising both arms, heart pounding, breath sharp in her chest. The vehicle slowed, then faster, then slowed again, uncertainty flickering in its movement. Stop! Please stop! She shouted, her voice breaking across the quiet highway. The truck's brakes engaged, tires whispering against the pavement as it came to a halt several yards away. The driver's door opened slowly. A man stepped out, cautious, confused. Mung? You okay? He called, his voice carrying across the road. Claire did not waste a second. No, she said, shaking her head, already moving toward him. Someone is hurt. He is up there. He needs help now. The man hesitated, glancing past her toward the dark trees, then back again, measuring the situation in a way people do when they are deciding whether to step into something unknown. Claire's voice softened, but did not weaken. Please, she said. He is not alone, but he cannot hold on forever. Behind her, up on the ridge, unseen but not forgotten, Rex lifted his head slightly, ears forward, listening as the night began to change. The man did not ask another question. Something in Claire's voice had already answered everything that mattered. He turned back toward his truck and called out, Hey Tom, grab the kit. Another door opened on the passenger side, and a second man stepped out, older, heavier set, moving with the kind of calm that comes from years of knowing when seconds count. What is it? He asked, but he was already reaching into the back seat, pulling out a flashlight, a blanket, and a small medical bag. Up there, Claire said, pointing toward the ridge, breath still uneven as she stepped back toward the tree line. He is alive, but barely. There's a dog with him. The dog, he will not leave him. The two men exchanged a brief look, not doubt, not disbelief, just a silent agreement that whatever waited up there was real enough to move toward. Lead the way, the older man said, slinging the bag over his shoulder. Claire did not hesitate. She turned and pushed back into the trees, the darkness closing around them again, branches brushing against their sleeves as the three of them climbed the incline, guided by the narrow path she had carved only minutes before. The forest seemed different now, less silent, as if it too was listening. The beam from their flashlights cut through the dark in overlapping arcs, catching glimpses of bark, roots, breath in the cold air. How far? Tom asked from behind her. Not far, Claire answered, though every step still felt longer than it should. Just over the ridge. They reached the clearing almost at the same time. And there he was. Ethan lay where she had left him, still, fragile, the rise of his chest barely visible in the dim light. But it was not him that stopped the men in their tracks. It was Rex. The German shepherd stood as they approached, stepping forward just enough to place himself between Ethan and the strangers. Not aggressive, not barking, just present, solid. His eyes moved from one man to the other, reading them in a way that felt almost human. "Easy, boy," Claire said softly, stepping ahead of the others. "They're here to help." Rex's gaze flicked to her. Held. Then slowly he stepped aside. Not fully, just enough. Permission given, but not surrendered. The older man knelt immediately beside Ethan, setting the bag down and working with quiet efficiency. "Pulse is weak," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. Breathing shallow. He looked up briefly. "We need to keep him stable and get him down fast." Tom moved closer, unfolding the blanket, his movements steady but quicker now. Claire hovered near Ethan's head, her hands finding his again, grounding herself in the faint warmth still there. "Stay with us," she whispered. "You made it this far." Rex lowered himself beside Ethan once more, pressing close, his head resting gently near the man's shoulder. But his eyes never stopped moving, watching, measuring. The older man worked quickly, checking airway, adjusting position, speaking in low, precise tones. "He is holding on," he said after a moment, something like surprise, threading through his voice. "I do not know how long he has been out here, but he is holding on." Claire glanced at Rex. "He is not alone," she said quietly. The man followed her gaze, his expression shifting just slightly as he took in the dog's stillness, the unwavering focus, the quiet refusal to step away. "Yeah," he said under his breath. "I see that." For a moment, everything narrowed to small, deliberate actions. Hands adjusting fabric, breath being watched, time being measured not in minutes, but in each inhale that came back. Then something changed. It was subtle, easy to miss if you were not looking for it. Rex lifted his head, slowly. His ears twitched once. His body leaned in closer, pressing just a fraction more weight against Ethan's side. Claire felt it before she saw it. A shift, a pause. "Wait," she said, her voice tightening. "Did you see that?" The older man froze, his hand hovering just above Ethan's chest. They all watched. 1 second, 2, then there, a breath, deeper than before. Not strong, not steady, but different, as if something inside him had been called back. The man exhaled sharply, a sound that carried both relief and disbelief. That is something," he said. Claire's eyes filled before she could stop it. She tightened her grip on Ethan's hand. "That is right," she whispered. "Come back." Rex did not move, but his eyes softened, just slightly, as if he had been waiting for that moment, as if he knew it would come. And somewhere in the quiet space between that breath and the next, it no longer felt like they were trying to save him alone. It felt like something else had already begun. The breath did not come again right away. It hovered in the space between them, fragile, uncertain, like something deciding whether to stay. Claire held still, her fingers wrapped around Ethan's hand, afraid that even the smallest movement might break whatever had just begun. "Come on," she whispered, her voice barely more than air. "Do not stop now." The older man leaned closer, watching carefully, counting in silence. 1 second, 2, then another inhale. Slightly deeper this time. Still uneven, still weak, but no longer fading. "He is responding," the man said quietly, a note of controlled urgency sharpening his tone. "We do not wait anymore. We move him now." Tom nodded, already unfolding more of the blanket, positioning it carefully. "We can use this as a stretcher," he said, glancing at Claire. "We will need to carry him down together." Claire shifted her weight, wiping her hands quickly against her jeans before moving to help, her body running on something stronger than exhaustion now. "Tell me what to do," she said. The older man gave quick, precise instructions. "We keep his head supported. No sudden movements. We go slow, but we do not stop. Rex stood as they prepared, stepping back just enough to give them room. But his eyes never left Ethan. Not for a second. As they lifted him onto the blanket, the fabric pulling taut beneath his weight, Rex moved closer again, circling once, then positioning himself at Ethan's side, ready to follow. "Easy," Claire murmured, more to the moment than to any one person. "We have him." They began the descent. Each step down the slope was careful, measured, the ground uneven beneath their boots, roots catching at their footing, loose soil shifting under pressure. The flashlights moved with them, beams bouncing, catching glimpses of trees, branches, breath in the cold air. The forest felt tighter now, closer, as if it were watching them leave. Ethan's head shifted slightly with the motion, a faint exhale brushing against the blanket. Claire felt it through the fabric, a small reminder that he was still there, still fighting. "Stay with us," she whispered again, her voice steady despite the strain in her arms. Rex moved alongside them, matching their pace exactly, never getting in the way, never falling behind. At times he moved ahead a few steps, scanning the path, then returned to Ethan's side, as if checking, always checking. Halfway down, Claire's foot slipped on a patch of loose earth. The blanket dipped slightly, tension pulling uneven for a fraction of a second. "Careful," Tom said quickly, adjusting his grip. Claire caught herself, heart jumping in her throat. "I have him," she said, breath shaking but controlled. Rex stopped immediately, turning toward her, his body still, eyes locked on the movement. Not alarmed, just present, watching. When they steadied again, he moved forward once more, as if nothing had broken. The sound of the road grew louder as they neared the tree line, the distant hum of the truck still idling, headlights casting long beams across the darkness ahead. Claire could see it now, through the branches, a point of light that felt impossibly far and yet within reach. "Almost there," she said, though she was not sure she was saying it for Ethan or for herself. They broke through the trees together, stepping back onto the gravel edge of the road, the sudden openness making the night feel wider, colder. The truck's headlights washed over them, turning shadows into sharp outlines. The driver stepped forward immediately, eyes widening as he took in the scene. "You found him," he said, already moving to clear space in the back of the truck. "We need to get him in," the older man replied. Fast but steady. They lifted Ethan carefully into the truck bed, layering blankets beneath and around him, creating what little stability they could. Claire climbed up beside him without thinking, her hand finding his again, grounding herself in the faint pulse still there. Rex jumped up in one smooth motion, landing lightly beside them, positioning himself near Ethan's side as if that space had always belonged to him. The older man paused for a brief second, watching the dog, then nodded once, quietly accepting what needed no explanation. "We're taking him to the nearest hospital," he said, closing the tailgate. "It is about 20 minutes if the road stays clear." Claire nodded, her eyes never leaving Ethan. "Then we make it 20. The truck pulled onto the road, tires gripping the asphalt as it accelerated into the night, headlights cutting a path forward. The forest fell away behind them, swallowed again by darkness. Inside the truck bed, the air was colder, sharper, but alive with movement now, with direction, with something that had been missing before. Claire leaned closer, her voice soft but certain. "You are not alone anymore," she said. Rex lowered his head gently against Ethan's chest once more, listening, waiting, as the road carried them forward into whatever came next. The truck did not slow. It moved like something carrying more than a man, more than a body on borrowed breath, like it understood that time had already been spent and there was none left to waste. The wind cut sharper in the open bed, pressing against Claire's face, pulling strands of her hair loose as she leaned closer to Ethan. One hand braced against the metal, the other wrapped around his, holding on as if grip alone could keep him anchored. The headlights carved a narrow path through the darkness ahead, the road stretching long and empty, each mile marked not by distance, but by the fragile rhythm beneath her fingertips. Rex did not shift, not once. He lay pressed along Ethan's side, his head resting against the man's chest, eyes half-lidded but alert, listening in a way that did not depend on sound alone. Every few seconds, his ears flicked, catching the hum of the engine, the rush of wind, the subtle changes in breath that no machine could measure. Claire felt it again. A pause. Too long. Her fingers tightened. No, no, stay with me, she whispered, her voice trembling now, the edges of control beginning to fray. You do not get this far just to let go. She leaned closer, her ear near his mouth, searching for that faint exhale. Nothing, just the cold air rushing past. Hey, she said, louder this time, her voice breaking through the wind. Ethan, listen to me. You're not done. Do you hear me? You're not done. The truck hit a slight dip in the road, the motion shifting them just enough to break the stillness. And then there, a breath. Shallow, uneven but real. Claire exhaled sharply, a sound caught somewhere between relief and disbelief. That is it, she whispered quickly, her voice softer now, steadier. That is it. Stay there. Rex's head lifted slightly at the same moment, his ears forward, his body leaning in just a fraction more, as if he had felt the same return before anyone else. He let out a low sound, not a bark, not a whine, something quieter, almost like acknowledgement. The road curved, the truck leaning into it, tires gripping hard as the driver pushed faster, the engine rising in response. From the cab, the older man's voice carried back over the wind. 5 minutes, he called. Maybe less. Claire nodded, though he could not see her. 5 minutes. It felt both too long and not enough at all. She looked down at Ethan's face, the lines softened now under the dim wash of light. The tension still there, but no longer slipping away. You have people waiting for you, she said quietly, not knowing if it was true, but knowing it needed to be said. You have not finished what you started. Rex shifted then, just slightly, his nose brushing against Ethan's jaw, a brief, deliberate touch, as if confirming something only he could sense. His eyes closed for half a second, then opened again, steady, unwavering. The truck crested a small rise, and suddenly the darkness ahead broke. Lights, distant at first, then growing clearer. White, red, steady against the night. A building, a parking lot, movement. There, Claire breathed, her chest tightening as something like hope rose too quickly, too sharply. The truck slowed just enough to turn into the lot, tires crunching over gravel, headlights sweeping across the entrance. The doors of the emergency room were already opening before they fully stopped, figures moving quickly, purposeful, drawn by the urgency that arrived before words. The tailgate dropped, hands reaching in, voices overlapping, control but fast. We have him, someone said. Careful with his head. Claire did not let go until she had to, her fingers slipping from Ethan's as they lifted him onto a stretcher, the motion smooth, practiced, carrying him forward into bright light. Rex moved with them immediately, stepping down from the truck, staying close, his body aligned with the stretcher as if tethered by something unseen. A nurse stepped forward, blocking his path for a moment. The dog cannot come inside, she said, firm but not unkind. Rex stopped, just for a second. His eyes flicked to Ethan, then to the doorway, then back again. Claire stepped forward, her voice steady despite everything. He stays, she said quietly. He got him here. The nurse hesitated, caught between rules and something. Harder to name. The older man spoke from behind her. Let him walk with us to the door. It was not a request. It was enough. Rex moved again, falling in a step beside the stretcher as they pushed through the entrance, the lights swallowing them whole. Inside, everything changed. The air, the sound, the pace. Machines, voices, motion. Ethan was wheeled through it all, disappearing behind swinging doors that closed just a second too fast. And just like that, the movement stopped. Rex stood at the threshold, staring at the space where his partner had vanished, his body still, his breathing slow, controlled. Claire stepped up beside him, her chest rising and falling as the adrenaline began to fade, leaving behind something quieter. He did not bark. He did not pace. He just stood there, waiting, as if he already knew that this part he could not follow. And for the first time since the road, since the forest, since the moment everything began, the night finally went silent. Tom did not move the same inside the hospital. It stretched. It folded. It forgot how to count itself. Claire sat in a hard plastic chair just outside the double doors. Her hands still curled slightly, as if they had not realized they were empty yet. The fluorescent lights above hummed softly, steady and indifferent, casting everything in a pale, colorless glow. Across from her, a vending machine blinked quietly, untouched. Somewhere down the hall, a monitor beeped in a slow, rhythmic pattern, a reminder that somewhere someone was still holding on. Rex lay near the doorway, his body aligned with the exact spot where Ethan had disappeared. He had not moved more than a few inches since the doors closed. His front paws stretched forward, his head resting between them, but his eyes remained open, fixed on the narrow seam where the doors met. Watching, waiting. Every time the doors shifted, even slightly, his ears lifted. Not hopeful, not anxious, just ready. Claire studied him for a long moment, something in her chest tightening in a way she could not quite explain. "You do not know what waiting means, do you?" she said softly. Rex did not look at her. He did not need to. His answer was already there in the stillness. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. It became difficult to tell. A nurse walked by once, then again, offering a brief, tired smile that did not quite reach her eyes. The older man and Tom had left not long after handing Ethan over, their quiet nods carrying more weight than words. Claire had stayed. She did not remember deciding to. She just had not left. The doors opened suddenly, wider this time, and a doctor stepped out, removing his gloves as he walked. His face carried that careful neutrality people learn when outcomes are still uncertain. Claire stood immediately, her legs catching up a second too late. "Is he?" she began, but the words faltered before they could finish. The doctor paused in front of her, glancing briefly at Rex, then back at her. "He is alive," he said, and the simplicity of it landed heavier than anything else could have. Claire exhaled, a breath she had been holding since the ridge, since the road, since the moment everything had begun. "He is stable for now," the doctor continued. "We were able to support his breathing. He is not awake yet, but he is fighting." Claire nodded, her eyes dropping for a second before lifting again. "Can I see him?" she asked. The doctor hesitated, then gave a small nod. Just for a moment. Claire turned slightly, glancing at Rex. "Come on," she said quietly. The nurse by the door stepped forward gently. "The dog has to stay here," she said, softer this time, not as a rule, but as something she wished she did not have to say. Claire crouched down beside him, her hand brushing lightly against the fur along his neck. "I will be right back," she whispered. Rex did not resist. He did not follow. He only watched as she stood and stepped through the doors, disappearing into the same bright space that had taken Ethan from him. Inside, the world shifted again. Machines, soft voices, the steady rhythm of control care. Ethan lay in a narrow bed, monitors tracing quiet lines of life beside him, the rise and fall of his chest now supported, guided, protected. He looked different here, less lost, less distant, but still far away. Claire stepped closer, her footsteps soft against the floor. "You made it," she said, her voice low, almost reverent. "You really did." For a moment, nothing changed. The machines continued their quiet work. The room held its breath in a different way now. Then, something small, so small it could have been imagined. His fingers moved. Just once. Barely. Claire froze, her eyes locking onto his hand. "Ethan," she whispered, leaning closer. The movement did not come again, but had been there. Real. She exhaled slowly, a faint, disbelieving smile touching her lips. "He is still coming back," she murmured to herself. When she stepped out of the room again, the hallway felt different. Softer, quieter in a way that no longer pressed against her chest. Rex was exactly where she had left him, but something in him had shifted. He was sitting now, not lying down, his posture taller, his head slightly raised as if listening to something beyond the walls. Claire walked toward him, slower this time. He is alive, she said gently. He is not awake yet, but he is still here. Rex's ears flicked once. His gaze held steady on the doors. Not needing confirmation, only waiting for the next moment. Claire sat down beside him, the silence settling between them, not heavy anymore, but shared. Through the glass panel in the door, the faint outline of Ethan could be seen, still quiet, surrounded by light. Rex did not bark. He did not move closer. He simply watched. And in that stillness, it felt like something unspoken had already been understood. Not everything that is saved comes back all at once. Some things return one breath at a time. Morning did not arrive all at once. It slipped quietly through the edges of the hospital windows, a soft gray light that replaced the long stretch of night without asking permission. Claire noticed it first in the reflection on the floor, a faint shift in color that made everything feel less suspended, less held in that endless moment between breaths. Rex noticed it differently. His ears moved before his eyes did, catching the subtle change in the world beyond walls, the distant hum of life beginning again. But he did not turn toward it. He stayed where he was. The door had not changed. The line of sight had not changed, and so neither did he. Claire sat beside him, her back resting lightly against the wall now, exhaustion finally settling into her bones in a way she could not push away anymore. She had not slept. She had not needed to. Not yet. Her eyes drifted once more toward the glass panel. Ethan lay in the same position, machine steady, breath supported, but no longer fading. Just waiting. Like them. A nurse passed by and slowed when she saw the dog still there. He has not moved much, she said quietly, almost to herself. Claire shook her head slightly. He does not leave, she replied. The nurse gave a small nod, something like understanding crossing her face before she continued down the hall. Time moved again, slowly. Then, without warning, something shifted. Not in the hallway, not in the light. Inside the room. Claire did not know what made her stand. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was something quieter. But she rose, her steps already moving toward the door before her mind caught up. Rex stood at the same moment. Not quickly, not sharply, just certain. The door opened with a soft mechanical sound. Claire stepped inside, her breath held without realizing it. Ethan's hand moved again. This time it did not stop. His fingers curled slightly, then relaxed, then curled again, as if testing the weight of being here. His eyes did not open yet, but something behind them had shifted. Something had returned. "Hey," Claire whispered, stepping closer, her voice softer than it had ever been. "You are still with us." The machines did not change. The rhythm stayed steady. But the space in the room felt different now. Less distant, less empty. Behind her, Rex stepped through the doorway. No one stopped him this time. No one said a word. He moved slowly, deliberately, approaching the side of the bed with the same quiet respect he had shown all night. He did not jump. He did not make a sound. He simply stood there, his head level with Ethan's arm, his eyes fixed on the man as if confirming something only he had been waiting to see. Then, gently, he leaned forward and rested his head against Ethan's hand. Not pressing, not demanding, just there. Ethan's fingers responded. Small, weak, but real. They closed slightly against the fur beneath them. Claire's breath caught, her hand rising to her mouth as her eyes filled before she could stop it. No one spoke. There was nothing to say that would not break the moment. Rex did not move away. He stayed exactly where he was, eyes soft now, no longer searching, no longer listening for something missing. Whatever he had been waiting for had arrived. Ethan's lips parted slightly, a faint breath escaping, different now, deeper, anchored. His head shifted just a fraction toward the warmth at his side. He did not open his eyes. Not yet, but he did not need to. Some things are recognized without sight. Claire stepped back slowly, giving them space that did not need to be measured. Her voice, when it came, was barely more than a whisper. "You found your way back," she said. The morning light reached further into the room, touching the edge of the bed, the stillness of the machines, the quiet line of a man who had almost been lost. Outside, the world continued without knowing any of this had happened. Cars passed. Doors opened. Lives moved forward. But inside that room, something else had taken place. Something small, something quiet, something that did not need to be explained. Rex remained at his side, not as a guard anymore, not as a guide, but as something simpler, something that had never left. And as the light settled fully into the space, it became clear in a way no words could carry that some stories do not end when a life is saved. They begin again in the silence that follows, where no one is cheering, no one is watching, and the only thing that matters is that someone stayed long enough for another to find their way back. In this deeply emotional cinematic narrative, a wounded Marine is found on the edge of life after a mysterious night in the wilderness, and the only soul who refuses to leave him behind is his loyal German Shepherd, a bond that transforms this into one of the most unforgettable animal stories ever told. Guided by instinct and unwavering devotion, the dog risks everything to lead a stranger into the dark forest, where hope hangs by a fragile thread and every breath matters, capturing the essence of animal stories that reveal courage beyond words. As the stranger steps into a moment she never expected, she becomes part of a journey where trust, survival, and silent communication redefine what it means to save a life, making this one of those rare animal stories that blend human vulnerability with the unshakable loyalty of a canine companion. Through the cold night, across uncertain terrain, and into the sterile light of a hospital, the Marine's fate rests not only in the hands of people, but in the presence of a dog who listens beyond sound and waits without doubt, elevating this into animal stories that resonate with faith, resilience, and emotional truth. As the story unfolds, what emerges is not just a rescue, but a quiet miracle shaped by connection, sacrifice, and the refusal to abandon someone in their darkest hour, placing it among the most powerful animal stories that stay with you long after the final moment. In the end, the Marine and his German Shepherd remind us that some bonds do not need words, some miracles do not need explanation, and the greatest acts of mercy often come from those who simply choose to stay when the world walks away.